Hello, and welcome to our podcast, Perfectly Human, the podcast that helps you feel that we're all connected. Well, that's our aim, and that whatever you're going through is perfectly human. My name is Rekha. I'm going to be one of your hosts today.
And my name is Angie. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Angie. This has been a while since we've recorded our podcast, hasn't it? We had
It
a
has
little
been a
bit of
while.
a.
I don't know if people have missed us or not. That would be a good sign if they have,
I hope so.
actually.
I hope so. But yeah, it's great to be here with you. Today's episode, we are talking about navigating transitions. So we're going to be talking about life transitions, what these look like, and how we manage them. And I think we're going to be focusing on both personal and
Yes.
professional, isn't it?
Yes.
So I think we'll change, not change, sorry. I think we will share some of our experiences because I think you and I both have been through a lot of change, especially in the last year or so, isn't it? So we're going to talk about that because the other thing is also a lot of our clients that we work with often go through transition or they want to go through transition because they may be wanting a step change in their life. So that's
Mm,
what today is about. So
yes.
why have
Yes.
we chosen this topic, Angie?
So, as you're saying, the first and foremost is our own personal experiences. So, remember when we have done training before, Reka, and we had a little change game, right?
Right.
And
Yes,
we were
that's so
asking.
fun.
Yes, that's a very good one, actually. So
Yeah.
the people who are our audience can try this. So there were some questions in there like how many countries you have lived in, how many houses have you lived in, how many jobs have you had, obviously. So if we put a few questions on the table like that, what we will see, I'm going to that topical sentence that you don't like, but acknowledge is true, Reka.
Okay, go on, tell me
change
what is it?
change is constant.
I know. I hear that so much, and it's like as much as I don't like it,
Yes,
it is true. It is
it
true.
is true. Yes.
Unfortunately.
So constant change is constant.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, sorry, before that, it's really interesting sometimes working with clients and leaders. They're always like, oh, we'll wait till this bit gets settled, and then we can get to work. Then we can, and it never does settle because it's just this constantness of something shifting, changing, and I think that's what life is like. So yes, as much as I
Yes.
hate that change is constant line because I hear it so much, it is true.
Yes, but I agree with you. It used to be the same with my clients. There was always this. So working in recruitment for very long, there was always this kind of illusion that once we hire the team that we want or the person,
Yeah.
yes, things get better, but then something else happens, and you kind of seem to lose that stability
Yeah.
that you thought you had, basically. So I like how we have chosen navigating transitions, though, because um, I like this word. I think I resonate more with transitions than change sometimes. But yes, like we have had our own fair of our own share rather of changes.
Change and transition. Why
um,
so why do you prefer the word change to transition? I'm curious.
no, rather the opposite. I prefer more transitions
Oh yeah,
than.
yeah.
Yes, yes, yes,
So
yes.
why is that?
Because I think it's a slightly way. It's a slightly different way of look at it. Basically, I think. Okay, call me crazy, but change feels like something is happening to you all the time.
Mm,
Transitions for me sounds a little bit more like they are things that are happening in my life, but they are part of my life. If the,
right. I
By
got
the
it.
way, that I'm
Yeah.
sure that
That makes
if
sense.
we got into definitions, it may not be like this, but that's how I feel it. But anyway, like we chose this topic because it was kind of quite personal to us.
Yeah.
We see lots of change. We have gone through lots of change. Our clients go through lots of change. Often they get stuck um, during this period of change. So we're going to talk about that as well. And we are still coming out of
Mm,
pandemic, which was like a huge, massive change for all of us. Basically, it was a huge.
yeah.
You see, when I say transition, I hope that the pandemic was a transition into something else, into something new. Does it make sense? Yes.
Do you mean explain that again? I'm not clear.
So what I mean is that the pandemic was here to show
Right.
us different ways of doing things, right?
Right.
Like it was a
Yes. Got
transition
it.
into something else. I'll give you an
Yeah.
example. For instance, like having worked in HR, I feel that we had done quite a bit already around flexible working, remote working before pandemic, but we still had like lots of obstacles to it,
Mm,
like mostly kind of, sometimes our own perceptions that, that people maybe are not so productive when they work from home.
yeah.
And the
Mm,
post pandemic was this event that, sorry, the pandemic happened, and it was this event that forced us to test some of these things in reality.
yeah.
And it has actually shown us that people can be even more productive working from home. So it has really demolished some of the beliefs that we had about remote working, etc. And
Yeah.
now we are in this new place where people want more flexibility, and the employers have to acknowledge that actually, yes, we have to give this flexibility. So lots of employers are now in a new place where they give hybrid
Mm,
possibilities, remote work possibilities. So it's like this has been a transition after all, because we were in one place, went through a kind of a messy middle, and then we've now come out in a different place,
yeah.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah. It is
Mm,
interesting because when we're in that messy middle, we
mm.
don't really think about the benefit that something can bring. Um,
Yeah, we don't. Mm.
we don't. So, I mean, in terms of, what are some of the transitions we want to talk about and what are some of our experiences? I mean, I know both of us have been through a lot of transition in the last year. I moved countries in March, so 3 months ago, I moved countries, started a new job. I've moved away from my family for the first time ever. Like, we're living long distant for now. So that's been such a transition for me. And Angie, you've gone through moving countries as well this last year.
Yes. So it's interesting, right? Because we have both moved for slightly different reasons. You have moved for career reasons. I have moved for more kind of family related reasons. Both of us were voluntary choices, though.
Yeah.
Like nobody told us, "Oh, you have to do this or that." We were both in Kenya. We have both come to UK. I have been in UK now 3/4 of a year. Um, so yes, there is this voluntary versus involuntary type of transition, basically. And in our cases, it has been voluntary. But even when it's voluntary, it's kind of bringing up a lot of emotions, when dealing with the emotions, dealing with the situation of having my husband is also most of the time away, still traveling a lot in Africa and still based in Kenya. So yes, we both have this situation where we are not the family all together, basically.
Together. And
Yes,
it's
yes.
tough actually. I'm finding it really hard.
Mm.
Um, And I think the whole voluntary involuntary piece, there's a piece of me that feels like when I'm having those days where I'm feeling really low, I'm missing my family, I'm like, this is really hard. I'm thinking, well, you chose this, Rekha. This is your choice. So suck it up, just get on with it. And it's been really hard. And I know, so both of us have been through this transition and still going through it, to be honest. I
Yes.
know I definitely am. what have you found to be the hardest thing?
I think the hardest thing is so let me say something for a moment. So I think there's kind of also two other differentiations in type of transitions. There are the ones that are kind of relatively small, if
Yeah,
that makes sense, or that we perceive as relatively small. Okay. And then there are some other ones that are really big. And Bruce Feiler, who is the person who coined the word lifequakes. So he talks about these ones. But what he talks about is like at the end of the day is also very much about your own perception, right?
right.
But what he was also saying, which I think is true and goes to your question, is like what is the hardest, right? Is any of these transitions can bring about emotions, and it's about how you deal with these emotions. So for me the hardest has been somehow what you expect, especially in a voluntary transition. Let's say you had some ideas of how things are going to be, right? So
Yeah.
for me, although I was moving mostly for family reasons, one of the expectations that I had was because I've been considering like maybe getting into the world of work again, right? And sort of looking for a kind of a more permanent job, let's say, which is also helpful for different reasons. But so I thought, oh, I'm going to get back to UK and I'll be able to consider going into a full time job if I want to, just like that, right? And
Mm,
actually, it has
mm,
not happened. It has not happened at all,
mm,
And I've also realized, wow, there are some things that I already knew because I have moved countries. I've lived in 5 countries, so I've moved countries a few times, and there are things that even when you have done it before, you're kind of used to it. But there are still other things that you completely somehow underestimate.
right. So
And
it's that expectation versus reality, right?
totally,
Yeah.
totally, yes. How
And
about
that's
you?
hard.
What do you think has been the hardest for you?
It's really interesting. I think what's been the hardest for me is how, and I didn't realize this, how my family, my kids and my husband was so part of who I am, my identity, and just moving here. And I know it's not, you know, they're still in my life, which I'm so grateful for. But just not being with them every day, I almost felt very I don't know what the word is, but insecure. It's almost like
Mm,
I felt very vulnerable. Actually, that's the word. I felt very vulnerable.
mm,
Um, and I think that's been interesting. It's like, who am I without them around me every day?
mm,
I
mm,
found that difficult. I think the
mm,
other thing I really struggle with is the unknown, just
mm,
not knowing what
mm,
is like I've started this path and I'm quite clear, I know where what it was, and
mm,
then I know what I want it to be. Like I know what I want the end state to be, but getting there feels very hard and I feel very impatient with myself. And
yes.
then I go into this spin, like things are not moving fast enough. I don't have this, I haven't done this. And then I start feeling really bad about myself.
Yes.
Um, and then it was actually the other day I was having a bit of a meltdown and I was talking to my husband, and one of the things he said to me was, let's just look at all the things you have done. And I think
Yes.
that for me was really interesting because
Mm,
I wasn't doing that. I wasn't so that those I think those two are the hardest things, like the unknown and just figuring out who I am in this new reality. I,
mm,
I, I don't know that yet, and I'm still discovering that. Still
yes.
trying to make friends.
Yes.
Which
No,
is
I hear different things in what you're saying, because I hear, and I think that for me, the pandemic, one of my reflections about the pandemic is exactly the same, is making us feel out of control. So
yeah,
we, again, but I think when you really think about it, it's an illusion. It's an illusion that we are in control of our
I
lives.
know, I know,
you
and
know,
that's the bizarre thing, isn't it?
Yes, because we have this illusion that life is somehow linear,
Yes,
like you grow, you go to school, you go to university, you get out of uni, you get a job, you marry, you have children, if that's what you want, obviously. But then you get the better job, then the bigger job, then you're at the top of the jobs, and then you retire. And
Yes.
actually, like, I think that life really teaches you, no, it's not like this at all, there's not a certain
Yeah.
sequence, like things go in different directions. I think up to sort of some point, I have that linearity in my life. But then basically, when I left my corporate world, and I moved countries, I had to kind of start again, like,
Yeah.
so then you find yourself in a situation where you're like, oh, so what now? Who am I without this HR job that I had before?
Right. And that's
So,
so interesting. Who am
mm,
I without this? And I think
yes,
that, working with a lot of leaders, sometimes their identity is very caught up in their job. And so sometimes, so let's say, for example, somebody loses their job, because I know you and I have both worked with in organizations where people have been made redundant and then they've all of a sudden had to come to terms with not having a job. And
yes,
what does that mean to them? So it's how do
yes,
we you know deal
yes.
with that reality and manage that transition? And I think one, and to what you were talking about, it's not linear. I think Bruce
Mm,
Feiler talks about that as well, that it can be circles, because often I think sometimes is I'm not where I would wanted to be or expected to be in my life, right? And
yes.
then and that so I like that I think that resonates with me, is that life isn't linear.
We all think that at some point in time,
Yeah,
at some point in time, we are all like either thinking, oh, maybe I'm not in the job where I wanted to be, or maybe
yeah,
I'm bigger than I wanted to be. Like, or maybe like, I well, we are in our 40s, and I have a number of friends who have devoted lots of time to their career, and then they go to their 40s and they're like, oh, I realized I wanted a child and I didn't have a child yet, so we
yeah,
always end up in a place where maybe we hadn't imagined that we would be.
yeah,
But yes, this is part of it, right? But so what kind of what do you think can help, let's say, Reka?
yeah, yeah. So I think, because I mean, I in the transitions in my life, and I think the ones I'm referring to are my life quakes, right? So,
Yeah.
one of them was having my first child.
Mm,
I expected, so the expectation I had on myself was, oh my God, this is going to be amazing. And then I really struggled. I've struggled with postnatal depression both times with both my kids. And so the expectation versus reality was really different.
mm,
And then even when I first moved to Kenya, I really
mm,
struggled with that. So I know about myself is that I don't enjoy transition.
mm,
I like stability. So it's really
mm,
interesting why my life doesn't always feel very stable, but
mm,
I don't enjoy it. So I think what's helping me is noticing my pattern,
mm, mm,
noticing that I can get stuck
mm,
in the resistance phase, like just
mm.
and I'm referring back to the Kubler-Ross um change curve
Yes,
and transition curve. I mean,
yes,
and
yes,
again, I
yes.
know that that is one framework to look at change. You've got the
Mm, mm.
denial, the anger, resistance, and then the acceptance, exploration, and then commitment, right? So those would
Yes,
be the phases, which we won't go into detail today.
yes.
Um, but
But
I
we
think
like it, and again, we reiterate that they don't go in a particular order, and you may
exactly,
not
yeah,
go through all of them. But what
yeah,
we like about this model is putting kind of being able to label your emotions is good
yes.
about this
I
model,
think
actually.
that's what helped me. So just noticing my pattern has been
Yes.
really useful. And I
Mm,
noticed, oh, I'm being a bit stuck. What do I need to think about? What do I need to focus on that is going well? So that's
mm,
helping me. Moving here, so the last last 3 months, the things that
Mm,
I've really held on to that has helped
mm,
me is having some routine. So,
yes.
especially my exercise routine, I think
Mm,
that's been really helpful. And, and the other thing that I do is I like to meditate. So that has
mm,
been really helpful as well. So
mm,
anchoring, I think what's helped is anchoring myself in
mm.
the things that I was doing before. So I
Yes.
don't feel too kind of everything's too different. So that's been
Yes.
good
Yeah, so you
for
don't feel
me.
like everything has been uplifted. You
Yes,
still recognize part of your old life in your new life, let's
yes,
say. Yes. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I think that there
And
are
it's
some
really silly. Like I'm still sorry
no, go
thing with
on,
that.
go on.
Was that is it sounds silly, but like for example, before when I was living in Nairobi, I was following a certain fitness program and I've continued the same program. And
Mm,
that's really
mhm.
helped me. So in the mornings when I
Yes.
wake up and I do this work and I'm like, oh, this feels good. It's like, yeah,
Yeah, that's nice. I was going to say, so there is part of you that can continue to do what you were doing. And in my case, I was doing yoga and I just found a new place to do yoga here. And I love it. It's a beautiful place. So again, it gives me some sense of it's part of what I like or part of my identity. But at the same time, I think there's also something else about maybe trying to do something new, or be open to do something
right.
new,
Yeah,
or be open to meet new people. And in my case, that has really helped actually.
right.
Like I kind of very randomly met some of my neighbors in this new neighborhood. I live in a smaller place now, which also has like a very nice sense of community actually.
Nice.
So yeah, sometimes kind of going a bit with the flow is also nice, and maybe
Yeah,
trying new things, meeting new people. I'm also quite a people's person, so for me, meeting new people has been nice. I don't feel isolated at home.
yeah.
Like it can
I
be very
see.
isolating.
I'm struggling with that. I'm really struggling with trying something new because right now, and
Mm,
maybe it's because I've only been here for 3 months. I feel like I don't have the emotional or the mental headspace
mm,
for it just yet. So I'm being very kind of okay, because for example, I've been thinking I should try and find a new gym or try and
mm,
and
mm.
I just like no, I can't. I don't
No,
how
but it took me a while to do some of those things. It
did
took
it?
me, it
Okay,
took me like you're only 3 months. I mean,
yeah,
it took me a good 3 months to kind of meet a couple of neighbors who are like huge connectors, and then they connected me with other people as
right,
well. It took me a while. I think I probably didn't find this yoga and all of that. So I think I generally don't like anything that starts with I should,
yeah,
to be honest. And I think we need to be kind to ourselves and
yeah,
also kind of take some time. Like people have been telling me, oh, you should do this, you should do that. But I think it's like whatever you feel,
yeah,
whatever
true,
whatever you feel. What I think is interesting is that again, having moved countries a few times and done some of these things like finding a house, getting kids into school, putting my new utilities, getting a new phone, I don't know what, like you do all of those
remembering
things.
remembering passwords. It's like oh, well, remember so many more passwords
Yes.
now.
Yes, so although you can do some of these things relatively quickly, what I realize also is like what continues to surprise me, let's say, is that every month that goes by, I feel more settled. I feel more
Okay,
settled than I felt. And I realize about this, I'm like, oh, I actually feel more settled now than I was feeling like 1 or 2 months ago.
okay,
So I
good.
think I think it takes some time,
Yeah,
definitely.
that
So
that that's
yeah,
comforting to hear.
totally. Yes. So we had this metaphor actually,
Yeah.
that during our research, I came across Brenda Reynolds, who is a consultant and author, and she talks about this metaphor of going through the fog. So she talks about there's kind of three stages, which we have kind of referred to. But so naturally, what do you do when you find yourself driving and all of a sudden, like, you cannot see much, right? So you're in the middle of the fog, right? So something has happened, you're here now. So the first thing that she talks about is slowing down. Okay.
Mm,
So it's like your natural instinct as you're driving, you really slow down, yes? And she talks about the thing that you just said earlier, which is we actually make more progress than what we think. And one sort of thing to think about is how far you have come. Okay, so when it really feels like your life is almost paralyzed, you have to kind of really look back and also acknowledge, actually, you have gone quite far. Even
yeah,
if you move slow, you're still moving, right? Which is the
true.
discussion that you were talking about with your husband. Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Then the second stage is more like, when you're driving in this fog, you need to think low beams versus sort of the longer lights versus the shorter lights. Okay. You cannot be too obsessed in, if you use the longer lights, if you're just focusing on what you think is your final destination, you get this impatience that you're talking about. I've also felt it. I also feel it lots of times, this impatience. But mm, again, like, you just need to kind of think one step at a time.
Yeah.
Okay, don't try to kind of go too far. Don't try to get too impatient. Just focus on your next step, and that will
Mm.
help you also reduce anxiety.
I
Okay.
think that's a really good point because I think I shared with you at some point that I was struggling with anxiety, like really feeling anxious because I was looking at I want to be, the end result.
Yes.
And I kept on, and then that was just like keeping me up at night, and then I didn't know the
Yes.
answers, and I think it was just this one step at a time is really helping me.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
yeah,
And again, like, even during the pandemic, we, like, very quickly, or at the beginning, everybody wanted to be able to sort of come to the other end of the tunnel very quickly. And then we realized, actually, that's not going to work. We just need to take one step at a time. And then actually you may end up even in a different destination altogether, but it's
yeah,
fine. And then the third thing that she talks about is, actually, if the fog gets too much, the thing that you do is you really literally pull over. Okay. And that's okay as well. So sometimes it's okay to just wait for the fog to clear,
yeah.
um, or for events to kind of continue to clarify, or help you clarify what's this new destination for you. It's okay not to have the answer. But yeah, I think as humans, we find it very difficult not to
Yeah.
control, not to be in control, yes, or to feel, or to acknowledge that actually a part of our life we cannot really control.
Well, and I think you said it earlier, isn't it? It's an illusion that we think we're in control, and actually we're not. But we like to. I mean, and I guess it's kind of how do we identify what we do control, which is our reaction, our
Mm,
mindsets, the things we can do. So focusing on the things we
yes.
can do, and then creating space to do those. I think that
Mm,
that can be really helpful.
yes.
I love the analogy of the fog.
Mm,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, I think so too. I think that at the end of the day, what we know is that we will all have life quakes. Okay.
Mhm.
Again, it's an illusion to think that you're not going to have problems at work, or you're not going to suffer grief, for instance, which is another huge one. Etc. Right. So there are, continuously, there are transitions, there are disruptions in our lives, but these transitions are also an opportunity for growth. Okay.
Mhm.
So they allow us to change our perspective. They allow us to continuously shape our identity. And I think for me, what I take away from this whole discussion is that balance is more the word I resonate with. Balance for me is more important than stability. Is like,
Mm,
how do we create this balance with some of these rituals that we have talked about, with creating new relationships, new opportunities, Stability for me is more of that illusion, that everything can always be like kind of bound me and a kind of a flat line.
Yeah.
It's not like that, basically, right?
Yeah. I think that's lovely. Thank you, Angie, for sharing that. And I agree with you. Life is going to be full of these transitions. And I love this piece around it's an opportunity for changing our perspective and our identity. It's how do we really do that and find out new things about ourselves. And it's an opportunity for us to grow and discover, who I am in this new space,
Yeah.
which I'm really doing right now. And it's not easy, but it's also very exciting. So I guess to our lovely listeners out there, I'm hoping that you found this discussion useful, where Angie and I have just talked about our transitions because it's been something very relevant for us in the last year or so. So, why we chose this topic is to share our experiences with you and help you see that maybe there are some things you can do differently. Even if it's one thing you got out of this episode, that would be wonderful. And how do we get better at managing these transitions? So, those are some things that I'm hoping we have shared with you. So, we hope that you found this episode useful. Know that you are perfectly human, just the way you are. Remember to subscribe, share this episode if you found it interesting with your family and friend, and share our Perfectly Human series. So I think that's it from us today. Anything you want to say, Angie, before we say adios?
Adios, amigos.
Yes. Bye for now.
Bye for now. Bye.